I'm Max Porterfield, President and CEO of Callinex Mines. Where we're advancing very high-grade, copper-rich VMS discoveries in the Flin Flon district in northern Manitoba. And we've recently announced a high-grade maiden resource at two of the deposits there, Rainbow and Pine Bay, which encompass over 3% copper grades. And we're looking to expand that this year through further exploration.
Nice, good to see you. Glad to be catching up with you. What a time to be a copper company. After 3 very difficult years for junior equities, for sure. What do you make of the macro? What's driving it?
Well, it's going to be supply. Supply is always going to drive things really at the end of the day because demand's there. Demand's fundamentally always going to be there. You get weaker demand, obviously, in a weaker economy. But again, it's going to be supply driven, and it's going to be a lack of investment in exploration over the past 10 to 15 years. And I can tell you it has been difficult, not just the past 3 years, because we've been at it a bit longer than that here at Callinex. But certainly it's a supply side story. I think demand's, kind of baked in place with government policy for the EVs. That's kind of pretty well known. AI demand is going to impact that as well. But certainly you can have all the demand in the world, but if you have all the supply there, it won't matter much. And we don't have the supply there, and that's the real opportunity.
I think it really is the opportunity, and I think it's specifically for Canada. At least the Canadian government, to an outsider like me, certainly seems to be getting behind this kind of the green metals for sure. And you've recently received a small grant as well.
We have. We received another grant from the Manitoba Mineral Development Fund. We've received a number of grants actually from the Manitoba Development Fund, going back to our original discovery holes into Rainbow in 2020. So we've had a long-standing relationship with the fund as well as policymakers within Manitoba, and they've been exceptionally supportive. This particular grant is going to be earmarked to do some environmental work necessary for permitting longer term, and really that is going to be a great benefit for moving these deposits forward, as well as further building our ties to Manitoba and getting these minerals out of the ground eventually.
Right. Okay. And so back to the point around the macro, around copper and mining more broadly. And I took about 3 years. Certainly, the equities have a tough 3 years, maybe a little bit longer for copper. To your view of it, what do you need to do now to take advantage of a higher price copper environment? We saw it hit $5 a couple of weeks back. People got super excited. I think it's just sitting under $5 now, but it's clearly the money's not going to flow straight down into exploration day one. Yeah. But how do you take advantage of a situation like this?
Well, I think we need to continue to do what we've always been doing, and that's growing and the growth through the drill bit. And we've been very successful at doing that with, again, the drill bit over the past several years at Pine Bay. We've made one discovery that's come in and transformed into a resource at Rainbow, and then the Pine Bay deposit. And then we've got a number of discoveries, one in particular, the descendant discovery, that we're very, very excited to be following up on. So again, it's building that pipeline of discoveries, drilling those discoveries out and stacking those pounds in the ground through the discovery process.
Right. And you just announced the 2024 exploration targets. Again, what are you aiming to find? What's important? Because people talk about drilling, but there's different types of drilling to get different types of data to help you and inform decision making moving forward. So what's the plan with these exploration targets?
Well, this is going to be another year about discovery. So we made a discovery called Descendant that we made late last year, and we've announced the couple holes into that area. Descendant's an area that it's always held potential, a great potential. I mean, in fact, this is an area of the property that exploration's dated back to a century. In fact, Placidum in the early 1990s opined for a 30 million ton target at Pine Bay. And one of the key areas that they liked is the area that Descendant sits. So we weren't the first group that's like that area. We've now intersected mineralization there at Descendant. We've subsequently followed up with magnetotellurics, the type of geophysical survey that can provide a picture of what's potentially come at depth, and that really mirrored our expectations of what we're believing is there. So we're really happy to see that. The MT survey also highlighted other areas. So what we're looking to achieve this year at Descendant is stepping out and getting into the kind of the core of the system, the higher grade portions of the VMS systems that we're believing we're at the edge of it. So we are eating the copper and the rest of the base metals there, the precious metals, but we really want to get into the heart of that, where you get those exceptional grades that everyone's come to appreciate at our property, like you see at Rainbow. And then beyond just Descendant, what we're looking to accomplish there, we're looking to make another discovery beyond that near surface. And that is further highlighted by the 3 different target areas that we outlined in our 2024 exploration announcement. Those 3 areas are multifaceted, not only being based upon our knowledge of the geology through limited drilling in the area and surface mapping, but as well as geochemistry and multiple geophysical tool sets that are really guiding that vectoring process. So again, 2024 is going to be the year of discovery and building upon that very, great resource base we announced last year at Rainbow and the Pine Bay deposit of the property.
Right, and just remind us, viewers and listeners, I mean, we've been doing some analysis of, some of the other copper exploration and development companies out there and the sorts of grades that they're seeing. You guys in 21, 2022, obviously knocking out the park, top 3 in terms of grade. Remind us of what those grades are, and why you think you can continue to, if you think you can continue to expect to see that sort of level of grading.
Yeah, so at the property, we put nearly 6 million tons of 3% copper on the table. At the indicated category for our Rainbow deposit and copper grades, specifically copper, it's 3.14% copper. And then on the copper equivalent, when you add in the gold, silver, and zinc, it's over 3.6% copper equivalent. So truly exceptional grades at Pine Bay, and this is what Flin Flon's known for. In terms of size, the maiden resource we announced is one of the largest maiden resources that's been put out in the Flin Flon district's history. So that's also something to keep in mind. It was 5.7 million tons. It was 4.7 million at Rainbow, a million at the nearby Pine Bay deposit. Is significant when you stack that up against the past producers in Manitoba. So we're very, very pleased with where they're at, and we've got our eyes set to much more to come with this Descendant discovery and other target areas that we're looking to follow up on.
Okay, so scale. If I look at the Chilean, Peruvian, etc., they're talking hundreds of millions of tons, right? What's the difference between doing business in a Chile, Peru, South America more broadly, Argentina, compared to where you are? Why does this well, I know you said it's a lot of it, but it compared to those guys, it seems smaller, but it's higher grade. So what's the difference in doing business?
There's all that is grade is king, but also location is king too. So we got to keep in mind that our high grade discoveries are located within a 20-25 minute drive from existing infrastructure that sits idle. So the milling capacity in Flin Flon that's on care and maintenance right now that is open to potentially processing other ore that's been publicly stated by Hut Bay has a capacity over 5,000 tons. That can even be expanded if there's multiple satellite operations feeding into that beyond that. So it is an excellent piece of infrastructure that sits there in the town. We also are road accessible, water on site, and have access to hydroelectric power. Now, going back to your question about comparing us to some much larger deposits like the ones you see in Chile and Peru, those are going to be exceptionally low-grade deposits. If you compare it to, for example, the operating mine here in BC that was recently acquired by one of our neighbors, that was 0.25% copper. So we're looking at about 15 times the average grade of some of these mines, which means 1/15 the volume of rock you need to move to process. And also in terms of human capital, it's much less human capital intensive as well as energy intensive. So again, that goes back to costs. In a really inflationary environment, which I think that we can all agree there's some sort of inflation going on, and you can argue with yourselves on how much there is, your open pit operations are going to be much more impacted by an inflationary environment, whether it be wages and or energy costs. So being high grade, being in Canada, and being an underground operation with the hydroelectric power really shields us in a lot of ways from those type of scenarios. So again, really pleased to be high grade copper in Canada.
Right. Okay. But here's the thing. You're a small company. Market cap is what sort of sub 30 million market cap, right? You've got to, like I said, I think some companies have just had to kind of stay in the game, during the last 3 years because it's been tough out there. Cash was hard to come by, and when it was expensive, and Most shareholders don't want you diluting them anyway, but you got to advance the project. You've got to build on where you are now and get to an end point. And we've seen business models change. We've seen people evolve their business models and go from, well, maybe we don't need to demonstrate the biggest thing ever. Maybe we can get into production sooner. Maybe we can find an exit in some way, shape, or form. I guess in the last 3 years, you must have, had all of the options on the table. Sometimes wondering, how this thing was going to pan out. I mean, so how are you considering the future? How are you planning for the future?
Well, we've been considering the future. I oftentimes spend too much time in the future, but that's how you get to the present is by doing that. So if you don't envision where you're going, it's pretty hard to have a roadmap how to get there. So with that being said, if we could have started the permitting work on the day we hit the drill hole, I'm the type of guy that would have done that. But that's just not how things work. There's a process to everything. So what was real key to the development of the company was that maiden resource on the property. We're like, listen, we're at a size that we know is a standout size, and we're nearing where we want to see the property as we move down the development pipeline. Now we've got much bigger visions in terms of exploration, and our exploration plans moving forward are to significantly grow the resource well beyond where we're at today. Now that resource though allows us to begin in the next step, which is getting through the permitting process and potentially applying for an advanced exploration permit, which would allow you to ramp down and take a bulk sample. But to get to that, you've got to do these low cost items, which is environmental studies and what have you, which are all key steps to that process. And so again, getting that support from the government with a grant is part of the process that we're going to begin doing now that we have that resource base and we have that support. And it's really naturally the next step that you want to take to do that. Now, if something happens in the future, we want to fast track that even further. We can shift and go and go from instead of an advanced exploration license, your full on production licenses, and then move that way. But again, I think it's very, very critical to be forward looking. I think it's very, very critical to show investors that that you can take advantage of these high copper prices that we're having today, and I think that we're going to have for really the foreseeable future until the supply side of the problem's going to fix, because the demand's not going away to that end. So again, that's a real opportunity for us, and that is where I think we're going to shine, given where we're located and the policies that are in place in Manitoba that are supportive of mining. Going back to your question about some of these areas in Latin America, well, there's a lot of issues aside from exploration risk that is associated with these type of things, and getting these things through the development pipeline. Used to say that in copper it was 7 years from discovery all to production. Now they're saying 10 to 12 years. But in Manitoba, where we're located, there's been precedents set. There's obviously a will to have things move much more quickly and support that from the highest level of politics in Manitoba, both the previous administration and the current administration. So we're really, really grateful for where we're at. I think we're going to continue to shine both with the drill bit in 2024, as well as moving the project along overall together. You're seeing the producers that are currently producing can achieve these higher margins with these current high prices, assuming that you're unhedged mostly. That's having impact to these share price for these companies. You've seen Hudbay perform very, very well. To name one, I mean, look at any of them that done okay more recently. And you're right, you haven't seen that in the exploration and development stages. And that's because we don't have the ability to benefit from those immediate prices that everybody's seeing in those headline numbers. Now, as these prices stabilize and people realize, hey, this is not a kind of maybe a nickel moment where it goes up and goes straight back down, or a zinc moment back in the 2018 timeframe, you're going to see the juniors perform. I think it will outperform the producers like they have historically. And mining in general is an inefficient market. We've seen this from time to time where your fundamentals are there, but then the price isn't pricing the fundamentals. And this is the time for that. And from an investor standpoint, it's an ability to reduce your risk when making your investment to allocate into base metal space.
Yeah, some good points made there. We're seeing more broadly across all metals, lot of M&A activity because the producers are throwing off cash for fun. It seems at the moment, certainly if you're in gold, well, silver and copper at the moment. That will have a knock-on effect in terms of these development companies will be picked up and kind of removed from the market in that sense. How you talked there about it will exploration companies will be the kind of high leverage play. What sort of time frame are we talking about for those sorts of knock-on effects and that cascading down into the exploration market? Does it sort of typically take?
I think it'd probably be the next 6 to 12 months that we might just
so pretty soon.
things.
So it's time to pick up some bargains.
The sustained move in copper isn't brand new. It has been going on for some months. So I do think that there is going to come a point where you're going to have a turn, and the turns happen rather quickly in this space. And historically, they've happened quickly, and I don't think that's going to change. Where everybody suddenly wakes up and smells the roses, and I certainly think that'll be the case from these names. And when you get, kind of flows into the sector overall more broadly, all ships rise in a rising tide. But I think the ones that have the sails set in the right direction, that have the real assets in the right location, are the ones that are going to outperform. And really, we've been mindful of the structure. We've been mindful of how we've done our business, and we've made the discoveries as effectively as possible. Manitoba is a great place to do business. We benefit from reducing our dilution with the charitable flow through financing and a lot of other benefits like the grants that they've been helping us out with. And that all is going to be realized at some point. And, when that does happen, it can happen pretty quickly, particularly when, you have a tight structure, you'll tend to outperform. It can hurt you on the downside and also help you on the upside.